All right.
I would.
Finance non-public order?
Sure.
All right, we're live. Huh?
Thank you, though.
Do you want to do roll call or would you like clerk to do?
I'll never do it. Unless you,
You're live.
wait a minute, we're on?
Yeah, it's
All
for.
right, we're gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is, will be our October 14th, 2025 meeting of the Charter Review Committee. Roll call, please.
Terrell Hill,
Carol, yes, I'm here.
apologize. Jeremy Davis. Tom Dolan,
Present.
Teresa Jackson,
She's not gonna be here.
Allegra Kitchen.
Here.
James Norwood.
Present.
Tiffany Parker Flanders. Here. Lee Ram, is it Ryan? Ryan, my apologies. Matt Schuler,
Here.
Audrey Wise,
Present.
Annie Bentley,
Here. Yes,
Beautiful.
very good.
Margaret Ellington.
Here.
Beautiful, thank you.
No arguing amongst them. Yeah.
Oh, we have four, my
For the
apologies.
record, we've got a forum.
How many are needed for?
Six. Six more. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and we'll continue on with approval of the minutes from September 30th. As everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes from our last meeting.
I don't need it corrected, but I'd like to point out that about every other time the city clerk left the S off my last name, which is fine. My grandfather spelled it both ways, so I'm not making a correction. I just want to note that.
I make a motion to approve with the necessary correction amendments. It's just me.
I'll second it.
She don't care about her last name.
I hear about the first name.
All right, motion on the floor, second, any, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Moving on, council, I'm about to give you this mic to you in a second. Moving on to public comment will be limited to 3 minutes, no action will be taken on topics of discussion. We will now open the floor for public comment, seeing no public, we'll close public comment. We will move on to item 4 on the agenda, which is our regular business is charter revision summaries. And we will start off with Article 5, Section 59. Yeah. All right. That's page 4 of the agenda.
Mhm. Thank you.
Under this section, background information included for the section was established April 22nd, 2025 in order to get definitions for other cities and request for job descriptions for HR. And under the project analysis, city attorney, division 5, section 4.18, qualification, city attorney shall be a lawyer with at least 5 years experience, admitted to having authority to practice in all courts of the state.
So this is from the St. Augustine Charter, these particular sections. So the charter as it currently stands is silent on the role of the city attorney. If you recall, you recently voted on approving a change that would eliminate the city attorney from previous verbiage. So right now, if that item were to be approved, the charter is completely silent as to the role of the city attorney. So you're welcome to go ahead and remove it from the other section, but it would be helpful if you provided clarity on the role, which most cities do. I just grabbed a sample from the city of St. Augustine, but of course, you're always welcome to do your own research to find out how other cities define the role of city.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you saying that if we approve this today, then you're not defined in city charter?
Not defined in city charter, period.
But you're still not defined at all?
I'm not defined at all.
Oh, okay.
So-
Well, I like what St. Augustine said and the way the staff did it, so, okay.
So as a point, so the only thing that happens with the city attorney, that's probably the most significant as it relates to the charter is the city attorney works for the city manager. and not for the city commission.
Right.
And so we've had a couple occasions where council has literally had to say to the commission, I can't advise you on this matter because I work for the city, I work in the liberty of the city manager and not the city commission. And so I'll say one of the glaring things with the charter review that I thought needed to be changed was the fact that we needed to make sure that the attorney worked for the best interest of the city commission and not for the manager. Because when the manager finds themselves at odds with the commission, they have counsel, and the commission is forced to have to hire outside counsel to deal with the conflict. And so there's no person who is on city staff at that point who's hired to be able to deal with those issues.
And
And
familiar with the issues.
right, any comments, questions, concerns after hearing that information?
I agree wholeheartedly. I mean,
I do too.
So I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Why can council not be counsel for the city commission and for the manager?
So 99% of the time, council does advise the city commission, but it's at the liberty of the city manager, if you really think about it, the way it is by charter. If the council goes against the manager, then they're going against the charter in the way they advise. So if the city commission said, we want you to advise us on how to terminate the city manager, for example, or how to reprimand the city manager, they're under fiduciary responsibilities that a lawyer has, obviously, under the oath of the attorney would basically be going against her client at that point and could be subject to reprimand. And so by the bar. And so that's where there's an issue. Because we've got an older charter, that's one of the reasons this exists. Most new charters, that does not happen. And so the manager, anytime there's a personal conflict between the manager and the commission, the manager would be forced to hire his own counsel as opposed to the commission having to hire someone outside of the city attorney. And so that's one of the issues that you have. The other thing that you have to consider is what we talked about before, even when it came to quick conversations with the clerk, is do we deal with job descriptions through the charter, or do we deal with them through ordinance, or do we deal with them in their job description through HR, however that's put in place through policies. And so, but that's the consideration that you have right now. Anything else you want to add, Council?
No, I'm just transitioning the clerk duties here.
through to our question.
Yes, ma'am.
Regarding that statement you just made regarding, ordinances for job description. Could we as committee, if we decide not to give the job description in our role here, suggest or, to the commission to adopt this type of thing in an ordinance? Or the reason I'm asking that is that once you put something in the charter, you kind of be put in a box.
You like
That's what
it
I've
to
got.
the reference?
So could we do that in that sense? Or, because it is subject to all other duties as, if, I get that. But any other way other than what we're going to do or not going to do today with the job description, could we do it by ordinance, like I said, recommendation type thing to the commission to adopt similar to this through HR, that kind of thing?
You can, but what I will say to you as well is it's not uncommon for cities to do this
Okay,
in writing.
Okay.
So when, for example, I use Hawthorne as an example, since I'm over there quite frequently. They define roles of their charter officers per se. So you would, in essence, be making the city attorney a charter officer, but what you would be doing is giving that information. I think where you're getting to some of the issues is when you end up with, and then, where the role changes. So let's say, like a couple years ago, you had a contract, city attorney, where the contract terms would reign supreme. And if there was a conflict between the contract and the charter was what reigned supreme, based upon how the contract is written. So if the contract says the charter supersedes whatever's in place, then that's what happened. Now you got in-house counsel. So in-house counsel, the dynamics are somewhat different. So before, like when Don was the city attorney, he had a contract. And then it morphed into, he became a quasi-employee, for lack of any other term, because he was, there was benefits and other things attached to it before. But at one point, it was purely contractual. And then the contract is what defined the roles of the city attorney. As you transition into in-house counsel, the role really you got a job description that quite frankly doesn't do what it needs to do to even talk about half the stuff that council's doing, right? So council ends up working a lot of times outside the scope of what their employment is based upon what the requirements are from a manager. So, and each manager is different. So you're asking people to do jobs that change continuously. And so that's why you want to make sure that you got your ducks in order, either contractually, by job description, or by charter. And so your charter, whatever you put in the charter can be the foundation of what it is, and it can be catch-alls to the rest of it.
Thank you.
So does that help you, confuse you, or give additional information for everybody?
I think it's great. I like the way it's worded. I have no problem with it at all.
Or you mean just how the job speak?
Although the actual position somewhere on the back
Is
page.
parking standards?
No, I mean, are we getting into the meat of what's written down here?
I'm gonna go through this job description, see if anybody has any
Okay, so
comments.
we just went through this qualifications.
Mhm.
If we're sticking with what St. Augustine has written here, which for the most part, I agree with most of it. I do think that it's important, cause it says the city attorney shall lawyer of at least 5 years experience admitted to having authority to practice in all courts. I feel like, I mean, if they're familiar with, and I'm not a lawyer, so. But if their 5 years are in criminal and we're asking them to come over to municipal, are they gonna be the most qualified? I mean, I feel like we should put maybe something in there about qualifications. Because over here on the next page, it does say, degree from law school, 10 years of,
What
experience.
Which page are you on?
well, I don't know which y'all's on.
You listed
Page six.
And it's.
Okay,
I'm looking at last month's.
Okay.
stuff, 'cause I know that's not-
I think it's 7. She left staff report and went to the actual thing. Okay.
Is it
So
so is what I'm looking at the current job description? Or is that,
Recommending?
okay,
So,
That's what she's recommending.
Is that what's in the text
This
you
is
have today?
provided for informational purposes,
Yeah.
and when we met in April, you started the job description.
that's the 2020, the job description is 2021.
okay,
So let me go through your first part right quick.
Okay.
The reason 5 years is in there.
Right.
My guess is that, so 5 years is standard used to determine whether you can actually apply to be a judge. So 5 years is kind of the legal standard of when they think that you know what the heck you're doing. The reality is you have people done it for 30 years who don't know. So, but that's kind of what they use as kind of a blanket standard for people to get into appointed positions. So that's why 5 was kind of the standard as they put that forward.
of any type of law.
That's the judicial standard, so that's why they do that. You'll see some places where they'll say 3 years experience, some people will say, you'll have in job descriptions. X amount of years in government law and, in public policy and, as it relates to, public law or whatever the case may be. And those are like minimum criteria, but. And so the question becomes, should that be in the charter or should that be in a job description? And as you start to deal with those things, right?
Okay.
Because, what happens when our standards change or whatever the case may be?
Although, to practice in all courts of the state, there's the Southern District, the Middle District, and the Northern District for federal court, and then there's also bankruptcy court. I'm admitted to all the district courts, but I'm not admitted to bankruptcy court, nor do I want to be.
Then if it's in the federal court, you don't want us to be there.
Right. Right, and then there's the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, and also, US Supreme Court, and I'm admitted to all of those, but for all courts of the state, there really is no reason for an attorney practicing in Palatka to be admitted to the Southern District, for example, or a bankruptcy court. So that might need some tweaking.
What page is that on?
That's,
That's
That's-
4.18 is the first one.
Oh, 1.18, okay.
I'm just concerned, I just wanna make sure that the attorney that we hire is familiar with the type of law that they will be practicing here.
I think that's really legitimate.
Okay, let me run through 19 and 20, and then we'll get back into the discussion. City Commission shall appoint a city attorney who shall act as the legal advisor to, and you guys stop me at any point if you got questions about any of these. To an attorney and counselor for the municipality and all of its officers in matters related to their official duties. The city attorney shall prepare all contracts, bonds, and other instruments in writing in which municipality is concerned and shall endorse each approval of the form and correctness thereof, and no contract with the municipality shall take effect until the city attorney's approval is so endorsed thereon.
Well, is the city attorney that does the approving of the recommendation. That they review it
Some
and then recommend to the commission that's okay to approve.
some city attorneys draft different things. So this, in most cases, you will have an entirely different attorney from a city attorney who does bonds and things of that nature. You'll usually have a bond attorney that comes in and does it. You know, even with the county, they did it for a long time through Russ, but when Russ left, they get bond counsel. The city, it has had limited opportunities to actually do bond work, because it's usually done through, I think it's Development Authority. But you don't, so all contracts are not drafted by the city attorney. Some contracts are drafted by the other party and approved by and modified by the city attorney. So some of this stuff is extra from what normal practice is. Just like sometimes the city attorney doesn't draft the resolution or the proclamation.
Right.
We just review it because a lot of times it's already set in the system.
But upon the review, it doesn't, because they approve of the legality and what resolution or what have you. They're not the ones that actually does the approval. They actually give the recommendation to the commission.
Typically you approve it because like, I don't want to touch it unless I approve it.
Right.
And so even here, we made sure that, and shortly after you left, we made sure that we said anything that comes before the commission goes through Mr. Holmes for approval, because what we found, we had other staff people who were writing contracts and negotiating deals over and beyond what they had, and council had no clue. We were even settling lawsuits without council being engaged. That's why we make sure we put that stuff in there. It protects the city. Yes, sir.
Point of clarification, what you were just saying, legal approves something for execution by the commission, not necessarily legal executing on behalf of the city.
So so basically what we do is we approve it for legal sufficiency, and then it goes in and it's determined by the commission.
There you go. And I think that's the way it should read for clarity.
And I'm sure that's the same practice you guys have over here.
It is, like, there's a signature block on every ordinance and resolution, and that's the legal sufficiency.
One of the inquiry is that big sentence there, is that currently in effect here, or do we have no policy?
No policy.
No,
You have
even though
you have a
there's a check,
practice.
even though there's a checkbox.
You have a practice and not a policy per se. We actually voted, we voted during a commission meeting, I remember, to have that done, but I'm pretty sure it didn't make it to the ordinance. It was just a directive. It's a directive at that point. So there needs to be, if nothing else, a recommendation that there be an ordinance or something in place which says that all contracts and legal documents go through the city attorney for approval for legal sufficiency.
So if I may ask legal, does our staff still writing contracts up?
So that should go.
So, I mean, there have been a couple of instances where we just had a staff member who didn't know and went a little rogue and, you know.
Yeah, that planning director's been 3 ones back.
Not just the planning
No,
director.
it's not
Well,
like
he was the main one.
It's happened
He was writing
in
27 a
multiple
day.
departments and based on what I have observed, it's simply a lack of training and education. I never felt like it came from a malicious place.
Mhm.
most of the time.
I mean, you had department heads who were writing leases. And that kind of stuff. Don't comment. So, and that's, and nobody knew. That's where your problems come in, but if you got policy in place, then you can change some of those things, and I think that's where we become a benefit here. Because, we can make sure there's a hard stamp in that.
And it also serves as checks and balances because oftentimes the city manager doesn't even know and thinks they also have broad authority, which is why there's a provision in your charter regarding the effectiveness of a contract is not valid until the city clerk signs off. So that's one level of approval, to counter the checks and balances.
I have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
Through the chair. Does that also include employment contracts? So, like city manager contracts?
Yes.
Would our city, okay.
So typically,
But you can see where that
Yeah.
has been
Yes,
challenging for me to engage in negotiating the contract for employment terms for my boss.
absolutely. Yes.
but that changes when you have, for example, headhunters involved and some of those other pieces to the puzzle. And before, like in those situations, outside counsel was engaged in the process along with the headhunting company or the hiring committee, for example, like they've served on hiring committees. And so when it came, once that stuff went to the outside, like the outside entity that was doing the actual hiring of the executives, they actually did all the onboarding, and then the contractual work was done by the city attorney to memorialize what the suggested things were put in place. So it was different than what you're getting with, it's different than just having you come in and be completely engaged in a negotiation in that process, because there was typically a commission liaison in place who dealt specifically with all of those terms, and the only thing you were doing was reducing it to writing.
Who is this commission liaison? Because it sure would have been helpful with the
Yeah.
hiring of the last two city managers.
They got
I
fired.
drafted those.
Fired. So, that changed the game. But it's always been, I think even when you guys run the commission, y'all always make sure you had a point person who was engaged in those processes, so that it didn't fall on staff.
Mhm.
And that's different, and even when there's outside counsel, it's still different than it is when it's in-house counsel, right? The threats are different. So that's part of it. Wes,
Oh, nice. I was getting your attention from the spiders.
she does a good job herself.
It was raising her hand.
I'll be polite.
Something new.
We're awkward. The
All
one.
right, any other questions as it relates to endorsing and approval? City attorney shall prosecute and defend for and in behalf of the city all complaints, suits, and controversies in which the city is a party, that unless there's outside counsel, so that's different. The city attorney shall also furnish the city commission, its board and committees, the city manager, employees, and officers of the city a legal opinion on any question of law related to their respective powers and duties. That's the crux of what they do. The city attorney shall be responsible to the city commission for proper administration of all affairs of the city attorney's department, one person department, and to that end will exercise control and direct supervision over the department and its employees.
Question. Should that be legal department, then we're gonna use that term department, so we're.
Instead of saying its department.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is just the staff report you read from, this is the actual proposal.
Of the city attorney's department. That's what
Yeah,
it says.
we've got a lot of departments in the city.
So,
It says of the city, it says of the city attorney's department.
are there cities with more than one attorney?
Well, most of them have staff. Most of them have staff or and a paralegal.
Let's call it legal.
Yeah, that's the legal, yeah, no, I mean, the real, is there, are there attorneys in one?
They only got 6.
Well, and if you go through these, all of this list, when I read it over, I'm like, we need more than one, but we can't afford more than one and all of that. But when you go through this list of responsibilities and duties, I don't see how one person can do all of that.
Well, the good news is they don't have to do it all at one time. And for the last 100 and some odd years, they've had no problem. I don't think Ms. West does either at this point. Now, if she ever has to do all at one time, then yeah, we're gonna have a problem. She's gonna have a problem.
Yes, sir.
Are we going to leave it as city attorney's department, or we're going to change it to legal department?
A special city attorney, but legal,
Okay.
I am referred to as the legal.
Okay, in that same sentence, it says may retain outside counsel to assist in furtherance of the duties of this charge. Do we leave that to the city attorney alone to retain? Should also, the city manager should be involved in that process as well.
City commission has to be
The
involved in it.
city commission, city manager, whoever,
It's a contract. So,
right?
so
So our purchasing policy does allow for the city attorneys in their sole discretion to hire outside counsel. It is usually with the approval of the city manager, and
Right.
I personally would never make that decision without getting commission approval. But
It's not, I mean, it's not, it's the city's protection. And also, if we went outside and hired them without this, the right to correct approvals, if by being in the charter, you can actually revert back to it to say, okay, you know, this, see, you should follow, and you need to follow.
yeah, I'll wait for comment from everyone else if there's any additional comment.
can I just add one point on this? We hire outside counsel through our insurance company, FMIT, for every slip and fall out there. If I were to have to get permission for them to hire outside counsel on our behalf, and I do directly supervise the representation of the city, that might be a little cumbersome. We have a lot of those claims.
But
Yeah, I
I
don't
also know that the city manager normally is deeply involved in that as well. Well, it used to be, I don't know if it still
Not at
is.
all.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
So the insurance company technically hires the outside counsel in those situations, not the city. The city has a contractual relationship with the league, with FMIT, to provide those services. So it's a contractual relationship when outside counsel is hired in those situations. And what in-house counsel does, so what Ms. West and whoever's in that position does at that time is they work closely with them and in a quasi supervisory type position to make sure that the best interest of the city are at hand. Sometimes historically, that's been the clerk or whoever's over risk management doing that in some cases, and that's where there was a disconnect because it was it was historically the clerk and then it became HR who worked risk management. And in both of those situations, there was, in some cases, a lack of communication as to whether claims what claims existed and what status they were in. And that information never trickled up to the commissioner or the manager.
Okay, what you're telling me then, its roles have changed since that time, because, you know, Mr. Bush used to be, his role would be, he would have his hands in everybody,
And he can do everything, and he did well.
So from Bush had his hand on all that stuff.
Right.
So when Bush left, you kind of had the same thing happen up until Terry Suggs. Then when HR came in, the clerk was handling risk management with Betsy Driggers. Then from Betsy Driggers, it went to HR. So HR started dealing with that stuff and working in concert with the city attorney and dealing with those matters. And so the city attorney has from Ms. Thomas to Ms. West, that the city attorney has been far more engaged in those processes because we made sure that the information chain goes through them. And that wasn't always the case. Sometimes Don would get cut out of those pieces before. And we found out after a settlement or in the 11th hour, which wasn't proper. And so the thing about having these policies in place is they shouldn't be person specific. They should be process specific. And I think that's where the disconnect has been, there hasn't been the proper implementation of processes to make sure that all those things are out, and that's what some of this does. And that's where we are. Okay.
Got a question for legal. So a lot of this proposed language that come from, or that comes from, St. Augustine, the charter is, so right now you're not a contract employee, correct?
Correct.
You serve at at the pleasure of the, city manager. So in this hypothetical instance, if this passes through referendum, then at that point, would you be required to get a contract with the commissioners? I would assume.
Yes.
Okay, so if we go forward with putting all this, the qualifications and the laying out what the duties are and everything, put that in the charter, and box that in. Is there a benefit behind doing it that way as opposed to simply saying that the city attorney reports to the commission and is appointed by the commission and then serves at the pleasure of the commission, and then leave all the rest of the stuff to the contract negotiations or the HR description stuff?
I do think that that clarifying sentence, because I know that there are some commissioners that are looking for that exact verbiage of the city attorney will serve the city commission, to have that clarification is important, and I don't believe it's in here, so that's a very good point. I do think having some parameters in the charter is a good idea. It will guide the contract negotiations. For example, in the charter, when it comes to the city manager, you have their duties very specifically laid out, but then it's also repeated and codified in their contract. I would imagine that it should be somewhat similar for the city attorney.
So I'll say this, I think that the language that says that the city attorney works for the commission is the most important piece of this whole thing. I personally don't think that the charter is the place for the description of the duties. I think the contract is the place for the description of the duties. Or the job description if it's in-house. If it's contractual, then it's the contract. If it's in-house, then it needs to be the job description. In both cases, it needs to be the job description. But the contract for the city attorney as well as the job description needs to give the framework for what their expected duties are. And that's the difference. And there needs to be language inside of that job description or contract, which says if there's a conflict between the manager who supervises who may be the supervisor unless the city manager is the direct report to the commission itself, which I think that becomes its own issue.
I have a question.
So no differently than the police chief who's appointed by the police chief is appointed by the manager. And then it's codified by it's confirmed by the commission. But in this situation, the commission my suggestion is that the commission itself hire its own attorney. That it be, that there be a majority vote of the commission to hire its own attorney. And that attorney works directly for the commission, not the city manager. So that kills that whole piece that's in the charter now. And then the job description is framed out inside of the employee handbook or whatever it may be at that point.
I guess the only thing that I would think, not like that, but I think that in drafting the contract and all those things and the duties and that kind of thing as well, when they do need some guidance to make sure that we're consistent with what we're looking for when we do go through that process.
Which is what this is.
Right. So my question is, certainly we don't want all of this in the chart. But it probably needs to be something there to give some guidance on the process that you're gonna use to hire the attorney for his job duties, qualifications and those kind of things. But certainly you could go out and, if you just put it out for a city attorney and you don't have any experience required, any only thing you need to just, go to law school and those kind of things.
But
that'd be up to the commission to decide, they're the one hiring them.
but also look at city manager per se. The education qualifications for city manager aren't in the charter. They're created by job.
No, I don't think we need to put the qualifications and all those things in the chart, but I think like we just need some type of guidance to make sure that the commission has something to work off of when they go through this process.
So would that be referred to? The policy in HR, would that be a reference to that? Would that suffice what you're saying?
And I don't know whether you would do the duties and whatnot by ordinance or whatever I have, but somehow I think you just need to have some type of reference.
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, I have a question. So as a citizen, I can look up the charter, right?
Mhm.
That's all.
Yes.
Yeah, but not contracts, right? Can
It's
I?
public record.
Public
You can
record.
request it.
The contracts are public record
Yes.
too?
Everything's
request
public
it.
record.
It might not be published online, but you
Yeah.
can certainly request it.
Yeah, you can request it and you can.
Oh, you
can
can,
get it that
you
way.
need to request, it, but the charter is
Freedom of
just
information
online.
request, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Oh, go here, we'll go here and come back to you.
go ahead, Mr.
No,
Dole.
You were waiting, go.
So your suggestion, if I understood all this, first of all, we've been discussing the staff report. The actual proposal is on another page. We haven't discussed that at all, which lists the duties. And I looked at it, and it still says this position report to the city manager, which I think we pretty well decided we don't want the attorney to report to the city. I look at page 6 of 16, it says this position
That's
report.
a job description for
That's
HR. So that's in there, the point of reference, so you know what the job description is. See where it says, step number 20.
Oh, at 20, okay, well,
Yeah, so that, she put that in there so you would know what the current job description
okay,
is.
okay, thank you, because that's been confusing me to no end. But your suggestion then is to simply have a paragraph basically about the city attorney, since the city attorney is not mentioned in the charter at all right now, from what I'm understanding. Is for you to, what you just said, that little paragraph, and then have the city policy decide other things, and the city commission would decide what they want for what they want for qualifications.
I think, yes, so I think the most important thing that we have to do is to say that the attorney works for the commission and not the manager
Yeah.
inside of the charter.
Exactly.
I said when we put that language.
Right, that is better. I think that's the first step to all of this.
I agree.
And once you get past that point, then you can decide whether you want to put in the general framework of what the city attorney's role is, or you want to give a reference to the job description and it gets into the exhaustive pieces that you have here. That part of it is, that's a pleasure of the board. I'll come at you after I come to Mr. Dolan. But that's my suggestion. I think council would say the biggest thing is making sure you get rid of that conflict and that it's clear that the attorney works for the commission. The other pieces of it, they can fall how you choose for them to fall. Mr. Dolan, I'll come at you, Ms. Flanders, Marcus
I
Flanders.
was just gonna try and clarify a little bit the staff report, which is page 4, is a sample of what we're going to install in the charter.
Right,
Okay, page 6, 7 are
job
job
descriptions.
descriptions. So the same thing for the next.
Right.
So the staff report is the language that we're looking at and going into.
Right. So that's a sample of suggested language. It's not the absolute suggestion, but it gives you a foundation.
Right, so, yeah, so that's where we can eliminate job description.
What we like and what we don't.
Exactly.
I have still another question.
Okay, I'll come back to you after I come over here to Ms. Parker Flanders.
So I do feel like it is extremely important that we put in a basic outline of qualifications and job description. I feel like, if there's no outline, a basic outline, it leaves a lot of room for, your best friend to come get the job. Rather than the most qualified person for the position. I just feel like it's really important to just put basic, we don't have to say, you've got to be here every day at 5, between the hours of 8 to 5, or, any of that sort of thing. But your basic job description needs to be outlined in the charter.
One question for you, just plain devil's advocate for me. What if you do that in the charter?
Mhm.
And the person who applied, and the people that nobody applies that meets that criteria. Now do you, and you don't get anybody else who meets that criteria, do you go without an attorney? And how can you go without one?
Well, we can't go without an attorney.
We have like 100,000 attorneys in this state.
5 years, AI is gonna see our concerns.
Huh? And we call it leave, bro.
First of all, you have 5 separate individuals. They have different friends. Usually they don't have the same friends. This is a small town. Everybody's friends with everybody. So if you say you can't be friends, then you eliminate. What I'm saying, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. You're saying somebody appoints a special person because they like them, but it's the whole commission is appointing the attorney. So I don't think we need to have that, and the commission as a whole, all 5 of them will decide who they want to hire as their attorney. Just like if I go to Ms. West, if she was an individual attorney, I would find out if I wanted to hire her, I'd ask her I'd tell her what I wanted, she'd tell me what she could do. Then I go to Mr. Hill, I'd find out about him, and then I pick whichever attorney I like best that fit what I needed, and that's what the city will do. But if I'm under a guideline that says, well, it's got to be a blonde-haired attorney, then I got to pick Ms. West. I'm saying, you can't put the regulations of what the city commission can pick is their choice of city attorney. I don't think.
I have a question. So, if Ms. West, becomes the legal counsel for the city commission, then she cannot be the legal counsel for the city manager any longer, is that
No,
correct?
it's just a reporting.
It is, so you can still be,
It can't be the city manager's personal attorney if they find themselves in the unfortunate predicament of being in a situation, and this has come up because of the termination of the last city manager. That requires them to have a personal attorney if I were the attorney to the commission. I can't have multiple clients with opposing viewpoints because that presents a conflict of interest under the bar rules, and I have to remove myself completely. I can't pick
Everybody.
sides from everybody. I have to remove myself from one or the other.
right. So I have another question, but, so who needs more counsel? City manager? Yes, it's manager.
That's a rhetorical question. Next question. Next question.
Guys and guidance, I don't know how many of you have the actual charter with you, but if you look at the city manager, Article 3, the very first section is the city commission by a majority vote of its total membership shall appoint the city manager for an indefinite term and fix the manager's compensation.
What page is that on, Jane?
It's in the charter.
I got the chart, I've got 160 pages.
Hey, just listen to what she's saying, and you have to read
Article
it.
3.
Yeah, I
Article
just
3,
read that
section
week.
36.
Okay,
And then it has removal, the city manager may be removed by a majority vote of the total membership of the city commission, which shall set forth the reasons for termination. Then it goes on to powers and duties of the city manager. It does not dwell on qualifications. But this, for the sake of consistency, you may want to have your officers be similar. Your city manager, your city attorney, your city clerk. If you're going to mention it in the charter, you might want to have consistent appointment and qualification terms, just food for thought.
That's if it's the intent to make the city attorney a charter officer. So that's the first question.
That's the first question.
Should the city attorney be a charter officer, or should the city attorney be another employee who just happens to be supervised by the commission?
So there's only the city manager, the city attorney, and the city clerk are the only 3 entities at the city that do require a majority vote for hiring and firing.
I guess I want to be clear, it's not my intent to make the city attorney or the city clerk a charter officer.
yeah.
I agree.
Represent the majority, they will be.
No, they won't be charter officers. No.
But they get it, but it depends on how you implement the language as to whether it's perceived to be such. And that's something that you have to understand. once you make those steps, then you technically are. Even if it's just perception, from a perception standpoint, because you're not doing it for the other 140 employees. That's the thing you gotta look at. So when you talk about the fire chief, you know, you specifically mentioned the fire chief, the police chief, the finance director, the clerk, and now you're saying the city attorney. The city attorney only has one reference in the charter, and that's being supervised by the manager. Once you put additional stuff in there, then you're giving additional, you're basically giving almost a quasi charter officer power. And so if you're just correcting that one sentence, then you're not. But in essence, that's where the change comes in. And that's what you gotta understand, because that charter is gonna control, you know, all of those actions at that point.
Then why don't we just correct the one sentence and move it to the next discussion?
That's been the conversation for the last hour.
I know.
But it's whatever the pleasure is, because. And so, let's say 10 years from now,
Mhm.
a commission decides when Ms. West retires and we all, you know, and we all decide we're no longer around here or whatever, let's make it 20 years. The commission decides they're no longer wanting a house counsel, they want contract counsel,
Mhm.
then it's a different climate, but you're already written into the charter.
So let me just clarify, and I misspoke, I forgot a couple of things for reminding. Under the city manager, it already states, appoint when necessary, suspend or remove the police chief, fire chief, finance director, city clerk, and city attorney with the concurrence of a majority vote of the city commission. So those positions are already embodied in the charter and have been for decades. In your previous meeting, you deleted city attorney from there, so there is now no reference. If that gets approved by the voters, no reference to the city attorney at all in the charter. So that's why we're having this conversation.
Right. Why did we delete them?
Because that would have provided for the oversight by the city manager to hire and fire the city attorney. And you have made it clear that that's not the direction you want to go.
Jeremy?
Yes.
I have a question for you, city attorney. If we leave the wording as it is and say, you know, the city manager can fire these people with the concurrence of a majority of the commission, could we not just add the wording except for the city attorney?
Well, you already deleted it.
I know, but that, it has to go to the commission for approval or the voters, we just given suggestions. Could we
Okay,
not go,
so except for the city attorney, and then what?
then the city manager can't fire the city attorney or suggest it?
You're not providing the clarification of who the city attorney's client is.
Okay, then we need to go back to what Harold said, which is simply saying that the city manager, pardon me, the city attorney is under the city commission. Or however he just worded it and leave it, be it very minor so that it's not doing all the other stuff he said, which I don't remember all the details.
Are you entertaining motions yet? Just ask.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay,
You're gonna defer?
yeah, I'm gonna defer.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the following phrasing for this section here. The city commission shall appoint a city attorney who shall serve at the pleasure of the commission and shall act as the legal advisor to and attorney and counsel for the municipality and all of its officers and matters relating to their official duties.
He'll let you take a picture of it.
Thanks.
I like that. I'll
Second.
second it. Oh, sorry.
Read it one more time.
Yeah.
It's effectively the first sentence of 4.19 with a couple of pieces in it. The city commission shall appoint a city attorney who shall serve at the pleasure of the commission and shall act as the legal advisor to and attorney and counsel for the municipality and all of its officers and matters relating to their official duties.
Second, again.
That's good.
There's a motion on the floor, there's a second. Any discussion on the motion, Mr. Dolan?
We want to include language from the charter about an off ramp for removal, because right now,
City attorney may be removed by majority vote of the commission.
yeah.
I'll amend my motion to include that language.
I will amend my second.
Let's go for a second. Now we have discussion on the amended motion.
The fact that it says that the city attorney shall serve at the pleasure of the commission. Does that not include if they're displeased, they can get rid of them?
But but if you look at, the charter itself always talks about, appointment and removal, and so that makes
Okay.
it clear.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got that language. Any further discussion on this?
Question.
Okay, what, are we gonna, so we're not gonna add any more duties?
Right, that's what we have, that's fine.
That's, it's vague, but it encompasses everything that, and generally speaking, that legal would end up doing. You know, it would include going to court, that would include
Is,
giving legal advice, it would include contractual obligations and stuff like that.
is there something specific that you wanted added?
Nope, I'm happy.
Good with that, Ms. Parker? Shannon? Right.
Also, it also clears up where, when there is a conflict, where she actually, like, or where the
Her lawyer.
representation is.
Yeah.
Well, question, Chair.
Questions already called, all in favor?
I,
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, so much for that hour. Next up, city clerk.
No, all these five minutes, we didn't get it.
good. That means we're getting home before midnight.
Y'all agree?
And Mr. COA meeting self-attendance. Don't go to any.
CRA meeting today?
I heard there's a CRA, is there a
Oh.
CRA, is there a CRA meeting today? Good, wasn't going to do it anyway. But I just,
No, the
Yeah, I
CRA,
don't-
the CRA has been moved to the last Thursday. of
okay, so it
every
got
month.
moved, okay,
Well,
okay.
You got
good.
9 minutes, you can make it.
Sure,
I wouldn't go
question.
anywhere, I want to go, get a headache.
Are we going to,
Same thing.
well, are we gonna discuss the job descriptions?
Yeah,
Or are we
exactly.
just going to focus on charter language? So,
It's your pleasure. It's your pleasure, sir.
my pleasure.
The
The chair.
I serve at the pleasure of this board. So if the committee wants to discuss job descriptions, Ms. Parker Flander does, so, if there, that's put an S on the end just for the record. If she does, so if Mr. Dolan wants to do so as well, and anyone else does, we will do so.
Inquiring.
And she did too, so that's why I just did that.
Well, it's included,
Now,
so
there's three.
can we do something with it?
Nope. In my opinion, no.
So it looks like no is the sentiment. So we'll continue on. Do we need to make a recommendation for the job description? I think we're in the weeds when we do that.
Right, right.
So, I think we're cool where we are.
Just for clarification, this section here was effectively laying out the framework of the duties and responsibilities within the charter for the clerk, is that correct?
Right.
That's already laid out in the job description.
We're finding ourselves in the same situation once again. So,
It's an unnecessarily duplicate. So,
here we go again. You don't think so? You think this is different?
No, what I'm saying is, I don't think we need to get into the job description in the charter. I love the frame of how we address the attorney for the job description and allow HR to do whatever for the, qualifications that can be placed in another entity. That is my comment on that.
So, council, if you can, read the current language for the clerk that's in the charter.
Are you talking about under St. Augustine, or are you talking about?
Under our current charter, what you just read,
What?
just the clerk.
We don't have any.
It's just the appointment piece that for the manager.
Correct.
So,
Attorney.
where the manager shall appoint.
Oh,
Wait, hold on. Is part in the charter? We do have, I'm trying to figure out what part this is in. City clerk shall be appointed by the city manager with the concurrence of the majority of the city commission for an indefinite And it does provide duties.
And so the difference between the project analysis and what we have here, again, is the clerk becoming a true charter officer that work and who they report to, because it says there shall be a city clerk who shall be appointed by and serve during the pleasure of the city commissioners and who under supervision of the city manager shall be the director of the Department of Records. The city clerk then goes into all the attending meetings and all the other stuff. That gets to the job description.
Right, I mean, this has the feel of a charter.
Charter officer.
Absolutely, there's a whole section dedicated to it with their duties.
And then when you go to Green Code, it says the city council shall appoint an officer of the city who shall have the title of city clerk. So that's a charter officer and be under the administrative direction and control of the city manager who shall evaluate the city clerk annually. And then it goes through their job description. So both of those changes it up just a little bit. Under our charter, you're appointed by the manager to an indefinite period, and there's a concurrence by the commission. In these, in Green Code, the manager appoints. This what the city council appoints and the manager supervises, and the same thing, the city council appoints. And the manager supervises in St. Augustine as well. So those are different than ours.
I like the way ours is, don't see any reason to change it.
So. We had a healthy conversation about this a while back. What is the position of the board as we sit here today? We heard from Ms. Kitchens. Feel free to chime in at any point.
What, we hear the pros and cons of being, of both sides.
So. If you're appointed, if the clerk is appointed by, if the clerk is appointed by the commission, then the clerk can be terminated by the commission. Under our current charter, the clerk can't be terminated by the commission, the clerk can be terminated by the manager.
With
And
With concurrence.
with concurrence,
funds of the.
right? But the commission isn't initiating any termination of a clerk.
Right.
That's where the real difference is. And so, I think in a nutshell, that's what it is. You're giving more supervisory capacity to the commission in the recommended language than there has been before. So it's a matter of what's the pleasure of the board as a whole, what your thought process is, yes, ma'am.
Well, we already have, and we've agreed on keeping the city manager form of government. So let's keep it the way it is, worded the way it is, and the city manager can hire and fire, but it was with the concurrence of the commission. So they're involved, but they're not directly involved.
But that doesn't change the form of government, just because.
No, but I just use that as an example, but I think we should leave it the way it is. Short version, leave it the way it is. If it's not broke, don't fix it.
But I still want to make sure we make the point that the commission's ability to appoint an employee or a charter officer, for lack of any other term, does not change the form of government, because the manager would still be the person who runs day-to-day operation for the masses.
I agree, I was not referring that.
And now you're fine.
Through the chair, let me make sure I understand. We have decided that the only employee of the commission is the city clerk. Is will be. We're looking to make the attorney as well as the city manager. Am I correct?
So far,
So far.
this will be the third
That,
decision piece.
okay, so what we're discussing now is to add a third piece to that, like you said. And with doing that, removing the city clerk from, not direct supervision, but accountability it would be to the commission and not necessarily the city manager. They will be still governed and job duties will come from the city manager. But the city commission can hire and fire, is that what you were saying? I just wanna
Yes,
make sure I
yeah.
got that
Because
right.
the only thing that's changing is they're still supervised by the manager. The
Okay.
only, it's just who's appointing them. See, in previous times, the clerk is recommended by the manager
Mhm.
and it comes before the commission who has to confirm. In this situation, the commission makes the appointment and the manager just supervises. Well, we can assume that the manager will be engaged in that process, but again, the appointment power is strictly on the commission. The manager does not play a role in that unless the commission has him play a role in it based upon the change that will be in place. His role is gonna be supervisory.
So hire and fire is what you're saying?
So the way this, if the commission has the power to appoint, then the commission has the power to
That's what
fire.
I wanna make sure that.
And in the other role, the manager has the power to make the recommendation, but then he also has to make the recommendation to the commission
I understand.
to terminate, and the commission has to agree. So if the manager says, I want to get rid of the clerk, and the commission says, no, it ain't happening, then it don't happen. You agree with that, council? Okay, just want to make sure that we're there, Mr. Dolan.
My only concern is that we're tripling their hiring and firing capability with this one decision. That's significant change for something that's been around for more than 100 years. So maybe we can discuss that a little further.
I will point out that the city clerk does not have the same, ethical issues that a city attorney would have with multiple clients in conflict. That's just not an issue for a city clerk.
Also, does the city manager know a lot more than?
Please don't answer that.
That's rhetorical.
It's another rhetorical.
That's rhetorical in nature.
I mean,
Those are happy hour questions. So here's, but I think here's what happens. So that you all know and that it's clear, and I think that's something that has to be said. It's not uncommon for this to be the practice. There's probably more communities trending towards this than anything else. Because the reality, the clerk is a very important piece to the puzzle. Overall, when you look at what your model codes are, and all this other stuff, right? But I also think that for me, I think it's 6 on one hand, half a dozen the other when you really look at what it is. It only becomes an issue when there's a management issue. That's just the reality of what it is. I think that's when it's an issue. So is the change based upon the times or is the change based upon the necessity for change? Those are two different things. I think, one of the things that has to be really understood is that the clerk isn't the secretary for the city manager. That's the first piece that everybody has to understand. A clerk's job is not a secretarial job. It is an administrative job. And and in most situations, clerks have other clerks that work up under them when they got a boatload of work. The problem with Palatka is we have a boatload. We've got the same things that big cities have. Airports, gas authorities, utility authorities, all these other pieces to the puzzle, but we still function with a clerk's office that's now a 2-person show, most of the time a 1-person show. That's where the difficulties come in, because underneath the clerk's office, if you look at those descriptions, it says record keeping as well. So we don't even perform the records keeping portion to the way that it needs to be performed. And that's been something that's been tried to be corrected, and it hasn't happened because maintenance of records statutorily, it outlines what's there. It has to be more than 1 person because the clerk can barely keep up with all the meetings. You got to have an assistant, and then you got other clerks that work in other departments that are functioning at some of these meetings. In some case, your current case, I think you have your clerk works most of the meetings themselves. And so that hasn't historically always been the case, but that's when it drains 1 person out. you have to get away from one person department, but that's not a charter committee decision. That's management. So that's the first piece. Getting people, including the council, to understand that the clerk is not someone's personal assistant. The clerk the clerk is the one person who understands statutorily what all your deadlines are. They keep everything in order as to what's in place. And so I personally think the person who is most familiar with what's necessary who should be most familiar with what's necessary for the clerk to be able to effectively do their job should be the manager.
Right.
But sometimes it don't work like that. So I think that's where the conversation comes in. And is it out of the realm of possibility for the commission to be the group that supervises? No, but when you have turnover again, you're gonna find yourself with people having different objectives for the clerk. And you become subject to certain levels of scrutiny and you give additional controls as opposed to having a manager who can supervise that stuff.
And I have another question. A city manager and a city clerk are there every day, right? And the commissioners are not there every day, so that makes.
Depends on what commissioner it is. So,
I will add that, just from a practical standpoint, it's just something to consider. The majority of our commissioners, all but one, work full-time other jobs.
Exactly.
Coming in to interview for the clerks, that's asking a lot because they work during the day. These interviews happen, just a practical thing to think about. It's hard enough getting them to meetings.
maybe now, but it wasn't always the case.
You know, just something to think about.
So that's at least I try to give you a little bit of background, so you at least get that piece. Mr. Nolan, I heard you thinking,
No,
you're not gonna share?
take it all in.
I still say leave it as it is.
Madam Chair, question, the statement that you've made regarding that the clerk is not the secretary for the city commission. If we put that,
I don't think it needs
and,
to
no, I'm not charter, in job, not the job description, I guess HR, I keep saying HR here, and I'm like, I don't know what the teeth is in that either. But is there any way we can fix that so whomever is at the realm doesn't get amnesia and start doing those things? What can we do to eliminate the feasibility of that continuing to be an issue?
Good policy and procedures handbook.
Exactly, here we go to HR again,
Which is not.
I hate to keep saying HR, but
but it's outside the scope of who we are.
I mean,
It's not.
I'm not talking about what we can do, but I'm asking, is there another entity other than HR that I keep saying? Could we make a recommendation to?
So-
I mean,
I understand
something
what
has to
you're
happen
saying.
here. A lot of these issues falling under this HR situation, that could be a policy or procedure that can eliminate some of this stuff.
But this is what happens, and this is the thing you have to understand with the clerk's position. The clerk's position in Palatka is a hell of a lot different than the clerk's position in Crescent City. In Crescent City, sometimes you may be doing more executive assistant stuff for the city manager, as opposed to here, where you're gonna be engaged more so in some of the contractual stuff in a different way, or you're gonna be dealing with certain deadlines that may come into place for certain policies that there. You're gonna spend a bunch more time dealing with resolutions and proclamations and some of these other things. And you're gonna write 10 times as many minutes as you did over there. So it's different, even with the same forms of government in different places. And so when you look historically at what Palatka had, where part of the clerk's duty was to act as the administrative assistant to the commission, that was fine and dandy before all this other stuff starts evolving.
But we still kind of do.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, because when I prep the agendas and, I have, of course, help with that, but in the when the final approval goes out and I publish them, I have to publish it and have to send it to the commission. So I'm still their go-to person when it comes to stuff like that. So I am their administrator to a point. But as of right now, but if they hire, if we ever get a legislative aid, that's gonna change. But Like right now,
You're in the mix.
I am right there. So that's just, I'm just letting you know that's how it's working right now without an administrator or.
It's
Oh,
not,
that's-
and I'll say this, it's not necessarily a commission fault. It's an evolution of the city, and that's different, and old habits are hard to break. And so part of it is, part of it is understanding what the organizational chart and then developing it and expanding it and growing from it, because this isn't new. 20 years ago, y'all added an assistant clerk who ended up being the executive assistant to the city manager as opposed to dealing with records. So the attempts have been made to start to right size the department, but there's always a shift in what happens from a leadership standpoint. So if there's any place that there needs to be what that framework of a job description, this may be it. But you also have to understand in doing so, you make the clerk a charter officer.
We'll do that.
So, but that's the mix, that's the question, that's the $1 million question here. So, Mr. Dolan, what's your recommendation?
Well, I'm not convinced on the officer position. And I think in that role, having to serve 5 different leaders puts you in a very compromised position. My recommendation would be
Leave the status quo?
Yeah,
or
I say so too.
come up with new language, but I don't think going the officer route is the way to go.
If that's not a motion, I'll make a motion that we leave the status quo.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I second.
There's a second by Ms. Whitlock. Now we're going to discussion as to leaving the language as it is.
Can we reread the language?
It just says that the language just says that the city manager will appoint, the city manager will appoint a manager and the commission, a city clerk and the commission is gonna concur.
And then the next section is all their duties, so do you want me to read all those?
Go ahead.
In addition to all other duties imposed by law or ordinance, the city clerk shall have the following duties. Provide notary services, furnish data to public information media, receive and file bonds and insurance policies relating to city issued contracts. Direct complaints, correspondence, and inquiries by action to various municipal departments. Handle personnel records when required. Provide for records and information management, including records indexing, microfilming, and retention scheduling. Conduct business with other city, county, state, and federal agencies as directed by the city commissioner. Provide notification to municipal departments of expiration dates on various matters. Retain codification of city ordinances, countersign all contracts on behalf of the city or to which the city is a part. No such contract shall be valid unless countersigned by the city clerk. Countersign all bonds, orders, certificates, or other evidence of indebtedness to the city. The city clerk shall attend all meetings of the city commission and shall keep a journal of its proceedings, the correctness of which proceedings as entered into such journal shall be certified to after each meeting by his signature and by the signature of the presiding officer of the city commission. He shall be the custodian of the seal of the city and of all records and papers of the general character pertaining to the affairs of the city. Last one, the city clerk shall perform such other duties as may be required by ordinance or resolution of the city commission, the laws of the state, or the city manager.
Okay.
Whoa, and I think those are fine, is what the clerk does is similar, you
You need an assistant.
So,
know.
Yeah.
I do just need a few clarifications, because when I'm reading over the, I don't know what page it is on y'all, no, next one. This one,
16.
12, page 12, which is the current job description. Of course, not all of that is listed, which I understand because it's in the charter, doesn't necessarily have to be listed. But it's different. And then my other question is,
It's a lot different.
right. And then the other thing is, it was talking about contracts and the city clerk has to sign off on contracts.
Yes.
In addition to the city attorney signing off on
Mhm.
contracts?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm not the only one that signs.
Right, I
Just a
just,
few people.
I didn't realize that the city clerk signed off on that.
It's a state.
It's checks
Yeah.
and balances, and I would not recommend changing. it.
Okay,
It's almost like a notary, she's almost like a notary, it relates to what's in place.
okay. So how do we feel about all of those job descriptions versus the job descriptions that are in her job description?
I like
Say that
her
again.
job description.
That's why it's scary part we go.
Those job descriptions are not all inclusive.
Right, right.
It says that they can,
Saying that. City manager has the ability to pull her into two different things with her at any time.
and it says under the duties, any other duties that may be required, so I think it covers everything, it's fine the way it is, it works.
Well, I think that's too much.
That's the question. I know you say it works, but does it work? The
It's
reality.
too much.
This is a lot for an
It is.
individual to, I
Absolutely.
mean, that's just the reality of the beast. And
Absolutely.
if we're here to be proactive, we're prayerfully, this little town that we call Palatka is going to grow. So
Right.
this is only going to increase. It's not going to decrease.
Right.
So I'm saying all that to say, that is a lot for one individual to
Absolutely.
do.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, I know we can't tell anybody to hire or whatever, but this is almost like. This is a lot.
Don't use that word.
I wasn't,
No.
I stopped.
I heard you think it's.
So to me, I don't know where we go with this, because with all of that, and to think someone could do a job to the best of their ability, and you're constantly possibly being pulled to do something else. Let's be feasible. This is, it's not, I know what it used to be, but the reality is, it's not really being
You can't
done.
even call in sick if you're sick.
Well, you
Because
can't.
you have to be there all the time. Right.
Hold on, I'll go to Miss Kitchen and come back. Go ahead.
oh, I thought you, okay,
That's your name.
no, I thought you were telling somebody else before you came to me. Again, these duties, they're not done, do them all day right this second. They come and they go, it's not all time 24/7. The city clerk can be off when she's sick, the city clerk has been off when she's sick. The city clerks consistently have done this work with no problem,
That's just.
and I'm not saying, wait,
No, that's not true. No.
She's telling her that she's doing a job. Why don't you ask her if she's doing the job?
pardon me a minute, I'm speaking,
Hold
if you don't mind.
I do,
on.
but go ahead.
Go ahead.
If you want to speak, I'll speak.
Hey,
You speak.
hey, go, let's go.
I have been involved with the city of Palatka since 1987. We're a very close and personal business because of something they did many years ago that was incorrect. I have followed them. I've talked to the city clerks. I've worked with the city clerk as a city commissioner for 9 years. I know exactly what they do and how hard they work, and I respect it, and I feel sorry about it. But if you cut her duties down, and we have to hire 10 other people to do these other jobs, I think, what is the problem with these duties as listed is, I don't understand what the problem is. When I worked for the property appraiser's office, my list of duties was like this. I had no problem. I didn't do them all the time. I don't really understand what the issue is, that what do you all want the city clerk to do? I guess that's the bottom line. What do you want the city clerk to do? And do you want it spelled out in the charter? I guess that's the bottom line. If the majority goes with it, that's fine with me.
Chair,
Wait,
Mr. Chair.
hold on. Go back
through the
over
chair,
here.
is that a question to me? If it is, I just want to clarify that. If that's a question about what you did years ago, I agree. This is not years ago. We're talking today. My question is, let's ask the clerk,
Right.
how is she facilitating this and how easy it's for her to facilitate it? I am quite aware that she's not doing this 24/7. I'm not that naive. But what I am saying to you, let's ask the person who's doing it how she's able to maneuver and what could make it easier. I'd say take away, but I'm saying needing assistance in some of these areas. I'm never, am I saying, take away anything from anyone. I'm saying somebody needs help. And again, through the chair, I would like to refer to the clerk and ask the clerk.
I will give me.
Once you get an
Give me a
opportunity
second,
to
let me
do
run
that.
through these comments first. Ms. Sweatlick,
That's exactly what I wanted to know. I would ask the clerk how she can perform all these duties,
Okay.
if she's maybe overwhelmed, underwhelmed,
Okay, well, hold on a second, hold
satisfied.
on a second, any more comments before we get to that?
Yes.
Mr. Dolan?
When I was reading First Legal's HR description, thought it was a little big, and then when I got to the city clerks, I thought it was 10 times larger. However, I don't believe that's our role to discuss jobs and responsibilities. It has nothing to do with charter committee. It has to do with human resources and the city manager determining what the roles of their staff is going to be. I do know how hard city clerks work, in particular our city clerk. I try to make it a point to acknowledge emails from her and thank her when she sends them. I don't know if people do that, but it's a very hard job. I just don't think it's germane to our discussion. I think we need to focus on what we're gonna say, on whether or not she's gonna be an officer or not, and move on. That's my 2 cents.
Well,
The only thing I wanted to say is, yes, I was talking about years ago, but I am actively involved. Karen will tell you that I email her a lot. I'm involved with her. I was involved with Sunny. I am involved today with the city clerk, and I will be involved in the future, no matter what we do with them. So I am currently involved as well as past involved. That's all I wanted to say. And I agree with Mr. Dolan.
You give them extra work, cause they always gotta see they gotta read your emails.
Try to help.
Yeah, so,
So we cannot ask.
can you, I'm gonna ask you to start yelling out in my meeting.
I'm sorry.
I got you, but I'm gonna ask you. So. I will entertain and with caution. Ask your question of the clerk. You know, we'll take a couple minutes and let you ask whatever questions you wanna ask.
The question I wanna ask, would it behoove you to get assistance in some of these duties? That's what my question was. I didn't say take anything from anybody. But would it be easier to facilitate some of these things you have to do if you had an assistant or a clerk under you or whatever that may be to help facilitate some of these responsibilities?
Of course. Of course it would help, but we're at a point right now that we don't have that opportunity. So I just chug along every day. I get help from Jane when I need it. She's my legal person when I need a question. If I have a question or anything like that, I go to her. She's the first one I go to.
You're back to being a one-person department.
I am one person department and right now. I'm the only one, so I have to deal with it, whether I'm sick or not, I go to work.
Yeah,
I was sick for 2 weeks straight and I had Jane too. She does the meetings as well when she's sick. There's nobody there for us to
Lawyers don't get sick.
step down. Jane, I think was sick for what, 2.5, 3 weeks?
That didn't
And
count.
she was there every meeting. I was sick, literally with 101, 102 temp, and I had to come in here and do meetings.
That's all.
So, yeah, but you know. And I would be dragging, but I would be here because it's my job and there is nobody else there, but. Right now, we don't have anybody, so right now, we're doing what we can and what we have to do. To be part of a team to make it work. So I hope I answered your questions, but that's basically.
Any other follow-up questions? You got a question, Ms. Sweatly?
well, my sympathy that you feel that if you have over 100. You know,
You got a question?
No, but still, I'm concerned about it because what she was bringing up, what Audrey was bringing up, that we are growing indeed, and your workload will increase, you know, probably substantially, and.
What I will say is, I think we recognize that there may be some need for there to be some type of organizational management in place, but that's not our role. I agree with Mr. Dolan.
Yeah.
I think that, and it's a slippery slope between the two. Again, Palaka's unique because it's a small, it's a city of 10,000 that has many of the same things that the larger cities have in place, structure wise. You know, not many cities, well, some cities may have water and sewer, but they're not gonna necessarily have their own gas authority, they're not gonna have their own airport, they're not gonna have some of these other pieces to the puzzle. This was the original proposed capital of Florida, so when this charter was written, this was a major city in
Mhm.
Florida. And it created the framework for all this other stuff. So whether it's 10,000 or 100,000 people, the charter will work the same way. Organizational management has to deal with all those other pieces of where we are. We can try to think we're writing whatever we want to write into this charter and lock it in. But as the city continues to grow, there's gonna have to be mechanisms that manage that from a management standpoint. That's different than what we're doing. And that stuff is gonna have to be right size or the right size itself. Because some things aren't humanly possible for them to manage. You know, while we all empathize, there's sometimes are limited pieces of what we can do based upon what powers and authorities we have here. So yeah, we can make recommendations that there may be an opportunity to look at right sizing the departments. But ultimately, what we've got to determine here, first and foremost, is do we want the clerk to be a charter officer?
My only question would be, and that's would be to the city attorney as well as the city clerk, is there any major conflict that prevents you from doing your duties currently?
Outside of time.
Yeah,
Outside of
Outside
time,
time.
no.
okay.
I know, I feel right now that, you know, I could use an assistant, Jane can use an assistant, but,
That's,
you know.
that's on the roles and, that's on the roles and responsibility. I'm saying,
But,
is
no,
there is no other conflict?
Not right now, there's no
Okay,
conflict.
all right.
They don't, the commission doesn't,
I'll ask-
the commission doesn't talk to me.
I'll ask one
They
question.
don't direct. Me. So,
Okay.
How different, coming from Crescent City to Palatka, how different are the defined duties of the clerk?
they're not that much different,
Not what your daily duties are, but what your
Right.
defined duties are based on charter by itself and job description.
okay, so my job description in Crescent City was, I had planning and zoning. I had, I oversaw planning and zoning, so I had to learn all about land and the use of the land. Wetlands, I had to learn all that in Crescent City, but, it basically the same thing, except for there's some different things that I did there that I don't do here.
So you had a larger scope of work in Crescent City, but
Correct,
you got a larger volume of work in Palatka.
correct. So it's
So-
the same, it balances out.
Right. So that's, and that's important to me to understand that part of it, right? Because I think the issue in Palatka is sheer volume and no help. That's different. So, you know, it's easy for me with the, you know, to say, while if this committee says do so, as I give the report at next month's meeting, something we'll talk about. While we didn't make any recommendations for the clerk's office as it relates to becoming a charter officer, even though we had a spirited conversation that's related to those pieces, we also think that there may be an opportunity to look at right sizing the departments and addition, you know, and looking at that. So that's just a one sentence, sir, which says,
Yeah.
hey, you know, we gain information which says do this. That's outside the scope of what we do, so we won't take a bunch of time doing it, but we will throw a nugget out.
I agree.
Now, I think a part of that should be, there may be opportunities for deputy clerks.
Right. So, which they created the position,
Mhm.
but then, just as in the past, the position changed.
Well, we're just going, this is a cyclical conversation. We're kind of beating a dead horse, really. So it's,
Two more minutes of that work.
yeah, so. The main focus of this staff report really is to determine whether or not we're gonna make the clerk of city or charter officer, right? So as it sits right now, is it, I guess, both legal and clerk, is it more beneficial to have a charter officer for the clerk, or have a charter officer categorization for the clerk as opposed to where it is right now? Because if I understand correctly, right now, there's a check and a balance where both bodies have to agree, and so that gives a little bit more insurance, so to speak, if you think about it from that perspective, a little bit more
Checks and balances.
yeah, check and balance that way, as opposed to only the commission being able to hire and fire that position. Is, in either one of your opinions, is one better than the other?
No, And I mean, I'm nervous for the change for me as well. I mean.
Me too, I'm kind of nervous, but, I think if you leave, I think, if you leave it the way it is, I think it works. I mean, I understand getting an assistant, that's gonna be somewhere later down the road when the commission has the opportunity. But I also have the opportunity every budget year to ask for one.
They don't always give it, but.
They don't always give it, but you know, I do have the opportunity to keep asking. I will keep begging as long as I'm here, so, but, so I think the vote right now, the motion right now is to leave it as it is, and I honestly believe that I'm protected under that,
I would agree.
you know, and just because,
Interesting world, yeah.
what, protected?
So,
It's true, because I'm protected by both, like, it's like if the city manager does not like me, but the commission absolutely love me, they're gonna tell her, no, at 4 p.m. You know, hey, too bad, you're not firing her, so I get a little bit of protection there. But I think if you leave it,
Exactly the same way.
you're exposed now.
Yeah.
Questions called. So now discussion closes at this point. You've heard, the points and counterpoints that have been very healthy. Questions called, and the motion is to continue status quo. Without any changes at this point, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. This is a good conversation before somebody cut it off, that gives us, I think it gives us what we need and what it gives, and it actually gets down to the crux of where we are. The last piece we have,
Hey, can we get some clarification?
No.
There's been a lot of back and forth about what constitutes a city officer. And there is the section in the charter, Division 1 generally, state when oaths to be taken by city officers. And then it goes on to list the bond requirements.
the bonds that never get
The
paid.
mayor and each commissioner, city attorney, city manager, city clerk, and finance director, and chief of police. So, but you're taking the position that they're not officers. I have always actually viewed them as charter officers.
The chief of police, and yeah, the chief of police and the fire chief, yeah, and the finance director.
So the
Yeah.
fire,
But is the clerk listed in there as what, as an officer?
well, that's the confusing part under the charter, and maybe I need to bring this back before you, because it doesn't.
Well, give me the number, the names that are enumerated again.
Sure, so first you have date when oaths to be taken by officers, and it says the oath required by the city officers by the charter shall be taken at the first city commission meeting in January.
The first Monday in January.
And then the second part is bonds. The following city officers and employees, so it's not clear, shall give the bonds as follows. Mayor and each commissioner, city attorney, city manager, city clerk, finance director, and chief of police. It doesn't clarify which is an officer and which is an employee.
Right.
So,
All of those have liability attached to them.
correct, a lot.
So there needs to be, so next, for the next meeting, that needs to be on the agenda for the.
Okay, yeah, I'm not trying to make work for my.
No, you just did.
Congratulations.
But I think it's a one sentence, sir, of whether we need to clearly identify all those people as officers or not. As, are they intended to be officers? And I think that I think it's a mix of people in that situation. So, do we need a sentence defining? And so let's just put it on there as food for thought for next meeting. And we will also deal with section,
61?
right,
Yeah,
61.
61.
61 and 62.
Yeah, 61 and 62.
For the next meeting.
I would also suggest that you look at how their roles are defined under each. Their roles are defined as appointments. And it's right, either describes them as charter officer or just officers or having employees as well. So we should look at that as well.
And that may answer the question.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
The section 39 in Article 3 refers to the city manager. When the the ability shall appoint and when necessary suspend or remove police chief, fire chief, finance, city clerk, and city attorney. So that may need to be considered a.
Yeah, we did that earlier. Yeah, yeah, we just talked about it earlier. Sure.
I knew we did it for city attorney, I didn't know we did it for clerk.
Well,
Right.
yeah, that was the beginning part of that conversation. Right,
Well, we also did just vote to keep everything staff.
Yeah, right.
Clerks to know what they.
Right. right.
This is the joy of dealing with the charter and the code. There's conflicts embedded
Although-
so deep.
But again, that's what happens when you get 160 years of
Yeah.
people, creatively changing things.
But I'd like to do this right, which means that I will have to delete that language from the last one that we just approved, so. In order to make it formal, I'll bring it before a vote again, so.
Well, don't be sorry.
It's that.
It's your clerk.
And then you gotta create a wonderful clause that says that if there are contradictions, this supersedes. So,
That's a good point.
Tomorrow.
no, we're doing we're gonna, so right now, we're tentatively set to give another update to the commission at the first meeting in November, right? Is it the only meeting in November?
Yes,
Yeah,
Right.
Remember,
So we'll do the November meeting to give them another update. I did one a few months ago.
what's the date?
the 14th.
The 14th.
Second Thursday.
I know that probably got it
The
anyway.
13th, I think,
Second
or
Thursday.
the 13th, the second Thursday, the 13th.
Thank you.
It's gonna be the second Thursday.
I got a straight answer out of the clerk, and I have an attorney. Thank you.
I'm not the attorney,
You are an attorney.
some days.
special meetings.
So we're gonna do that. And so we'll give an update as to where we are right now, how far we've gotten and remind them that those deadlines will hit really fast.
Mhm.
And even though it doesn't seem like April's
Right.
around the corner, it is around the corner because we're quickly hitting the end of this year. We're in the last quarter.
And you'll be doing the update, right?
Yeah,
Thank you.
it'll be quick. But I think it gives us, at least another opportunity to kind of plant seeds as it relates to some things. I think that's gonna be the good part about it. But we need to have another meeting fairly quickly, I would say within the next 3 weeks or so. So that we can give time to deal with the stuff that we have in place and we can kind of close out where we are. The rest of it's just, a lot of it is just what we're gonna do as far as referendums and some of the other stuff. Then there's that period of rewrite.
I'm unavailable for the 17th through 24th.
17th to the 24th.
Yes.
I was thinking we'd be sooner than that.
What about the 28th of October? That's in 2 weeks. You look shell shocked, James. Well,
I'm good on the 20th.
what about the 28th?
Yeah.
It's in 2 weeks. James West, is that good for you? No?
And my meeting's next week, we're gonna do one for this month.
Election day.
What's election day?
November
The 28th of October?
No, this is now, I'm going. in-
I was suggesting October, not November.
Oh, okay.
That shit, Jane can make it.
Change.
Oh, okay.
Jane,
It's just too much.
Yeah, I thought we were.
November 4th is the planning.
Yeah, it's election day
Okay,
and planning board.
yeah, it's gonna be continued, so.
Well, can we do it,
Everybody good?
another day then?
Everybody good for 28th?
So November
Jane
28th.
can't,
October.
Jane can't make it.
I'm sorry, yes, thank you.
Jane can't make
I
it.
can make it, it's,
She doesn't want to.
no, it's not.
Well, it's,
It's a lot to get done before now.
what about November the 5th? That's the day. I
Remember, this was your idea.
This was not.
What about November the 5th? That's the day after election day. It's a Wednesday.
It's church day.
Well, it's been church day every day we've met for the past year.
You make October 28th work?
Or is,
28.
Or
doing the
if you
28th?
don't make it, I won't call on you.
At 4 o'clock again?
Yes.
Everybody's good with October
October
28th?
28th, 4 okay.
I think
All right, we're not gonna add anything else to it. We'll just continue on what we already got. That'll make it easy. And
Okay, I wasn't sure if y'all had them or not, so I just said.
Yeah.
I
Keep
did
your,
this one.
keep your packets for this meeting, I'll
Yeah.
have mine for everyone. else.
That's fine, that's all.
Uh,
That's awesome.
All right, we're good. Everybody good to adjourn now?
Well, I am ready to go with them.
Miss
Motion to
Miss
adjourn.
Parker Flanders,
Second.
you're okay?
Yes.
We're stand adjourned at 5:40.
Bye, everybody.
Hey, you got it.